Andrew Friedson. I'm Jordan Lindsay. Reporters, if you still need permission to record, please note that in the chat. And if you have any questions throughout this briefing, you can note that in the chat as well. Now I'll go ahead and toss it to Council President Andrew Friedson for opening remarks, and then we'll open it up for questions. Council President, to you.
Thank you, Jordan. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. I want to begin by sharing two events taking place tomorrow during council session that we'll be celebrating throughout the month. In the morning, we'll have a Lunar New Year proclamation with the county executive, the County Office of Community Partnerships, and members of our AAPI community to celebrate the Year of the Dragon. That will be led on the council by Councilmember Mink, the first Chinese-American member of the county council. Then the council will host a commemoration to celebrate Black History Month. The theme for this year's commemoration is African Americans and the Arts. We'll have a proclamation and a screening of a video produced by our communications team featuring local African American artists and educators and highlighting the significant cultural influence that Black Americans have had on music, dance, and the arts, both locally here in Montgomery County and nationally. So we're looking forward to that. Hope you'll join and take part in some of those celebrations and commemorations at the council and throughout this month of February. In other news, want to reiterate the appreciation and gratitude that I have shared and the council has shared to Chief Marcus Jones upon the announcement last week of his retirement. We are very much in appreciation of his service as chief to the Montgomery County Police Department and his 38-year career in public service, which has really been an extraordinary one. And one that has really benefited our community. We really appreciate it. He's overseen significant changes at the police department throughout his career and in his service as chief. He's really built relationships within the community. I have considered him to be a partner and a friend and a very trusted colleague. And at a time when, you know, it is a challenging moment in public safety, Chief Jones has really provided humble leadership and the type of servant leadership that we would expect. He's expected to step down on July 1st. We know that he'll leave a significant legacy and difficult shoes to fulfill. We have a dedicated and talented team around him and behind him. We look forward to working together with the county executive, who we expect to send a nominee to the council, and we will take it up as quickly as we can to review that nomination and to move forward. The chair of the Public Safety Committee, Sydney Katz, and I are sending a letter to the county executive to ask for him to outline his process and how the executive branch will be conducting this nomination process and this search, and ultimately to get a sense of the timing, both for the council's consideration and understanding, but also for the public. There are few jobs in county government that are as important as the police chief. There are a few things that we do that are as important as public safety. And so we're very much keeping an eye on this and look forward to working together with the executive branch to ensure that we have the type of leadership at the police department that we need to keep our community safe and to ensure that we have trust within the community and morale among the rank and file police officers. Of course, over the weekend on Friday evening, the news broke that the Board of Education and Dr. Monifa McKnight as superintendent mutually agreed to separate. Since 2021, Dr. McKnight led the school system through really challenging and difficult times, overseeing one of the nation's largest school systems in the unprecedented aftermath of the COVID-19 crisis and all of the challenges in the community and in the country and in public education systems since then. The council respects the decision of the board and Dr. McKnight. We look forward to working together with the Board of Education to ensure trust, to maintain a level of transparency and accountability that residents deserve and expect, to make sure that we are advocating for the best interests of our students, for the families, for the 25,000 educators who work in MCPS, and to make sure that we all own the challenges. We know that the challenges and issues that were highlighted in the Inspector General report that we most recently received predate the superintendent's tenure, that they are longstanding and need to be addressed in a holistic way. And so we'll continue to work together to ensure educational outcomes, workplace culture, and public trust are at the forefront of the decision-making process moving forward. It's my understanding that the Board of Education intends to vote on and install an interim superintendent on Tuesday at their meeting tomorrow. And so we'll continue to keep an eye and monitor that, and as well as look forward and keep an eye on our joint committee meeting. The council on Thursday is set and had scheduled, as many of you know, to meet to discuss those Inspector General's reports. That will be at 3 p.m. It's a joint committee of the Audit and Education and Culture committees at the council. I expect for it to be widely attended by council members and by members of the community and the media. The January 23rd OIG report detailed serious lack of proper policies and procedures that the school system should have had in place to investigate and document complaints of misconduct. That includes the Beitelman situation, but it goes well beyond that as well. And it alarmingly found deficiencies that had been identified multiple times and reported previously to MCPS, but that there was a failure to implement changes and to take the appropriate corrective actions. As noted, those are longstanding, and those go beyond one individual leader or a set of leaders, and go to the heart of the challenges facing the school system related to policies and procedures, but also culture that need to be addressed as well. So we'll have the Inspector General, we'll have the Board of Education and MCPS leadership there. We want to, get to the bottom of what happened. We also want to understand what has been done to address what happened and what is being done to move forward to take the type of corrective action that is needed and necessary. Prior to that, we continue to call for the Board of Education to release an unredacted, complete version of the Jackson-Lewis report. Many of the questions that we have, many of the questions that the public has, that MCPS families and educators have, are in that report. We are calling for, continue to call for that to be released to the greatest extent as allowed under law. We have been calling for that since and continuously since the September conversation and committee discussion that we had overseeing the initial incidents related to former Principal Beitelman. We continue to call for that. I sent a formal letter on behalf of the council reiterating that request and that call so that we can be informed of the extent and nature of the endemic issues that are facing MCPS and understand what is happening to resolve them. And in that, we'll continue to seek accountability and transparency as we move forward. Before I close on that, there was a request from colleagues, two colleagues, to invoke a section of Montgomery County law that permits the council president to administer an oath to testify for those before the county council. I have consulted with colleagues and the decision has been made. I have made the decision based on the consensus of colleagues that we are not going to be administering an oath. The expectation is that every single person who comes before the council at every single discussion, testimony, and hearing and work session is being forthright and is telling the truth. It's an unprecedented action that has never been taken before. And I actually think it would do more harm than good. The likelihood that putting individuals under oath would make it less likely that they would invoke privilege that has been invoked and has been less than forthright, as opposed to more, is unlikely. I actually think they'll be less forthcoming and forthright if they're facing threats from us, essentially, of fines and of other punitive actions, including even jail time. It is my view that this hearing on Thursday and all of our actions related to these issues need to be substantive and not performative. And everything that we are trying to do needs to be focused on getting the accountability and transparency that we would expect, that I think the public deserves, to allow all of us to do our jobs. I think all of us own the challenges within the school system. We are limited to a certain extent on what we can and what we cannot do. But our goal needs to be to ensure that the public understands what has happened and that what is happening is actually addressing the issues, and that we are focusing all of our attention on the students and families who rely on MCPS, on the 25,000 educators who work at MCPS, and on the public that funds MCPS. And so we'll continue to do that. I'll continue to do that. We'll continue to focus as much as we can and ensure that we're doing it in a way that doesn't make people more reluctant to answer openly and honestly, as opposed to less. I continue to believe that the Jackson-Lewis report is the best mechanism for us to get to the bottom of these answers, and we'll continue to push and advocate for that to the extent that we can. Before I open up to questions, just want to remind everybody that our capital budget hearings begin this week. We will begin tomorrow and as well as Wednesday. We've opened up additional slots and opportunities for folks to testify. And obviously, major decisions that we make related to schools and transportation projects and other public facilities are in the capital budget. And so we look forward to hearing from the public on that. And then two major items before the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee that I chair later today. One is the parking minimums zoning text amendment that I introduced with Councilmembers Mink and Glass to eliminate the certain government mandated requirements that drive up the cost of housing and create unnecessary costs that inhibit our ability to meet our housing and our environmental goals. And then we also have a regulatory improvement, changes to conditional use, a bill that I worked on for the past year with the hearing examiner and Office of Zoning and Administrative Hearings and the Planning Department to try to cut some bureaucratic red tape to make it easier to do home-based businesses, including home-based childcare. So stay tuned for that. Look forward to the discussion later today in our committee, and look forward to answering your questions to the extent that I can. So with that, Jordan, let's take some questions.
Great. Thank you, Council President Friedson. Just a friendly reminder, the formal letter on behalf of the council mentioned by Council President Friedson is noted here in the chat. You can click on that link and access it. Reporters, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or note that in the chat. Up first, we have Kate Ryan from WTOP. Good morning, Kate.
Good morning, and thank you. I have so many questions. I'll try and keep it tight here. Number one, on the superintendent, the notification, I guess, on Friday night was that Brian Hull, the COO, would be the acting, that they would be looking for an interim. And then we hear tomorrow they're going to name an interim. Does that reach the kind of transparency that you would want to see from the school board? Understanding personnel issues are very complex. And as former Superintendent Joshua Starr told me in an interview last week, there are a lot of guardrails around what people can say. But is this transparent?
Well, it remains to be seen. We'll see what happens tomorrow. It's just my understanding that I'm sharing that they're going to put somebody up in public session and vote on them. Obviously, there is heightened sensitivity in the public on transparency, specifically to your point. And this is a very important decision. They have two decisions essentially that they have to make. One is an interim, which, I would expect would be, through the school year, just based on timing. And then the other is the search for a full-time replacement, which is, obviously going to take longer and may go into the summer. And ultimately, both of those decisions matter a great deal. The first decision of the interim is going to play a significant role in reestablishing stability and trust that is needed. And so it's not just the what in terms of the decision, it's the how when it comes to transparency. And all of us will be taking a close look at that over the next couple of days.
Got it. Two quick follow-ups. Jeanette Dixon, former board member, longtime MCPS employee, suggested, well, she didn't suggest, she said that this superintendent was not given a fair shake compared to her predecessors, that she came in at probably the most challenging time you can imagine. Do you feel she was kind of scapegoated, that she was unfairly blamed for some of this stuff? And then as a follow-up on the new chief coming in, we're at a pivotal point in Montgomery County. You'll see a new chief of police, new superintendent. What are your hopes for a new police chief? Chief Jones has said, hey, we've got the talent right here in the ranks of the department. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, two important questions. To the first question, as I said before, we respect the decision that was mutually agreed upon between the superintendent and the Board of Education. Ultimately, this is their decision. It is the Board of Education as duly elected officials, their job to appoint a superintendent as effectively the CEO of the school system, the $3 billion enterprise of public education in our community. I understand the sensitivity and the concerns and the frustration. I've heard from many people in the community over the last several weeks about those concerns. I will say that regardless of the decision that was made on Friday, which is up to the Board of Education, there still are unanswered questions. There still are ongoing questions and concerns related to endemic challenges that predate the tenure of the superintendent. We want to discuss that on Thursday. We will continue to have our joint committee session on Thursday. That joint committee session was not a discussion or an indictment over the current superintendent or current leadership or even current board. It was about the endemic challenges that have come to light that need to be addressed in a holistic way. We'll continue to push and advocate for that on Thursday and moving forward beyond Thursday. As far as the police chief, I have great respect for Chief Jones. I consider him to be a friend and a trusted confidant, someone who I reach out to on a regular basis to understand what is happening in the public safety apparatus, to understand best practices, to understand how we are addressing the challenges in our community. It's a huge loss. It's a major decision that the county executive has. I would agree with the chief that there are some great options internally, and I think that they deserve to get a very significant look from the county executive. Ultimately, it's his decision to put forward who he believes is best to move the police department forward. But ultimately, I very much hope and I would expect that internal candidates will get a very serious look and a fair shake and a reasonable opportunity as they move forward. That's one of the reasons why Sydney Katz and I, as chair of the Public Safety Committee and council president, are sending the letter to get reasonable expectations of how this process is going to work. I think job number 1, 2, and 3 is to ensure that we have morale within the police department, that we address recruitment and retention challenges, and that we ensure that the public has trust and confidence in the police department. I think Marcus Jones was doing a good job in that regard. And I think there is an opportunity within the police department to continue the progress that has been made. Having said that, it's the county executive's decision, and ultimately we'll weigh that decision when it comes before us as a county council.
Gotcha. Do you have time for one more, Lindsay? You tell me.
You have time for one quick one. We have some other people in line. If you have a quick one more question, that'd be fine.
But when you talk about the endemic problems on the board, I have heard, board members don't have the kind of staff that council does. It's a part-time position. And as you point out, it's a $3 billion enterprise that these folks are charged with overseeing. Do you think there should be a change? Should it be a full-time position? And should they get staff the way you guys do to have people who can help you understand the very complex issues you face?
Yeah, first, just to clarify, the endemic issues that I'm referring to are in the school system, not necessarily exclusively with the board. However, your point of the ability of the duly elected board, based on the current structure that we have, to oversee a $3 billion budget with 161,000 and increasing number of students, 25,000 staff. I think this has demonstrated what I have long called for, which is the Board of Education needs more staff support, and I have advocated for that. We'll continue to advocate for that, and I do think we should think about it being full-time, and I have raised that question, as have other council members, of whether or not these should be full-time positions. I think at the very least, they need more resources to do the type of oversight that is necessary. Everything is relying on us having a strong public school system. That's why I think we all own it. I want to strengthen the board. I want to strengthen the governance structures. I want to help support the efforts that we need to do in order to have the type of school system that we all expect and we all want. We have work to do in that regard. And I do think that it is legitimate to question whether or not it is reasonable for part-time board members with very limited, virtually no independent staff to be able to provide the level of governance and oversight that is needed. And it's an area that I think that we need to work together with our state partners to address that. Ultimately, many of those dynamics are state decisions, not county decisions, but all of us, as I said, play a role in it, and we need to work together to resolve it.
Thank you. And thank you, Jordan.
No problem. Thank you, Kate. Up next, we have Lily Zhang from Fox 5. Good morning, Lily.
Hi, good morning. Thanks so much for doing this, Council President. A quick question regarding the hearing tomorrow before the Audit and Education Culture Committee, where you mentioned there's 2 council members who are pushing for it to be under oath. You mentioned you consulted with other council members on where they stand. Was this a formal vote, or were these discussions that you were having, conversations rather?
I consulted with every member of the county council, got a sense of where the body was. Ultimately, under the code, it is a council president decision, but everything that I do as council president, including testifying in Annapolis to support Smith Island cake, is done based on the consensus of the body. And so I thought it appropriate, given the fact that this is an unprecedented action that has never been invoked before, is not something that the prior councils have formally considered, that I consult with colleagues and understand specifically where each council member was in light of making my decision, and made it accordingly.
What was their general consensus? Do they feel that this was just an overreach? I mean, can you kind of summarize what they generally told you?
Well, I've shared with you the view that there is a concern that putting people under oath wouldn't necessarily add to forthrightness; it would actually diminish it. The privilege that has been invoked, including in the Jackson Lewis report redactions, is based on the Public Information Act and personnel. And putting somebody under oath is more likely for them to discuss with lawyers before responding to any questions, is more likely for them to invoke levels of privilege. And so the challenge that I have, I understand why colleagues suggested that. I understand why members of the public would be interested in that. I understand that it sounds like we would be getting more answers. We would be getting more information. We would see more forthrightness. But I think the reality is, from a practical perspective, the most likely outcome is that we would get less in return than more. Beyond that, I think it sends a very unfortunate signal that we are at war with the Board of Education, and we are at war with the MCPS leadership, and that this is an adversarial relationship. I don't think it is that way. I think that we feel very strongly that we want transparency and accountability, and it continues to be my view and the view of the consensus of colleagues that the best way for us to get that transparency and accountability is the unredacted complete version of the Jackson-Lewis report, which has the answers to many, if not most, of our questions.
Appreciate your response. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Up next, we have Kelly Lynn from WJLA TV. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning. It's my understanding that Dr. Monifa McKnight was invited to attend the joint committee session that's coming up. My question is, will she be in attendance, and do you think it's necessary to hear from her at this point?
Well, as of right now, what we're doing is we have the Inspector General, the Board of Education, and MCPS leadership. Ultimately, she is no longer with MCPS leadership. They have, mutually agreed that was effective on Friday. The purpose and the goal of the meeting is to discuss the Inspector General report, talk about what has been done in response and what the school system is doing moving forward. Ultimately, I think the most important people to hear from are those who are going to be addressing and implementing the changes moving forward. I think that the existing leadership is most important to have at that meeting, and so that would be my expectation moving forward. But we have not formally, this was late breaking news Friday at 5 o'clock, and so the final participation of exactly who is representing the Board of Education and MCPS leadership has not been formalized or finalized in light of late breaking news on Friday. But my expectation is the most important people we need in the room are those who can address the issues and talk about how we move forward.
Okay, I have another question. An MCPS parent complaining that federal law requires a Title IX coordinator to investigate any allegations of sexual harassment from employees. However, the IG report found that complaints were forwarded to the Department of Compliance and Investigations and not investigated by the Title IX coordinator. That means that federal funding was not properly used. What is your response to this complaint?
That's a reasonable complaint and something that could be asked and should be asked on Thursday.
Anything else that you'd like to elaborate on regarding that?
I'm not a Title IX expert. It does raise questions. It's one of many questions that have been raised that are quite legitimate. These are some of the concerns and questions that we have that need to be addressed in how these allegations of sexual harassment and of workplace misconduct are handled, whether or not they've been handled appropriately, whether or not when issues have been raised, whether corrective action has been taken. The Inspector General report has raised a number of questions and concerns that relate to that, and I'm hoping that we can have a substantive, not performative conversation on Thursday that is very direct, that asks the questions that we have, that answers them in a forthright way, and that we can move forward. This is not intended to be a witch hunt. This is not intended to put people under the attack and to have gotcha type of situations. This is intended to get to the bottom of what has happened, what is being done in response to what happened, and how do we move forward to prevent these issues from happening again and refocus the conversation on student conduct and student outcomes and on the education that our young people are getting. How do we ensure that we have a culture in our public schools, or over 200 public school facilities and all of the expansive areas that we have, so that 25,000 people who go to work every day feel safe and supported and feel like when they have an issue that there's someone there who is objectively looking into it and going to address it. We have work to do in that regard. We have trust to restore. We have morale challenges within the ranks of our educators and our staff that need to be resolved. And we all have unique roles in this. And I respect the role of the Board of Education. I respect the MCP leadership role with the county council, the county executive, our partners in the state. We all have a part in this, and all of us, everything is reliant on us getting this right, because there is virtually nothing else that is as important in our community than the strength and the quality of our public school system. And we have work to do to get it right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Up next, Miriam Shazad from My MCM. Good morning, Miriam.
Morning. Thank you so much. Yes, Council President. So do you know who exactly from the Board of Education and MCPS leadership will be speaking on Thursday?
As I said, we're going to have MCPS leadership. We're going to have the Board of Education. We're going to have the Inspector General. We have not finalized exactly who's going to be representing each group. Obviously, between late breaking news on Friday afternoon and first thing this morning, those final determinations have not yet been made.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. I don't see any other questions from reporters. Reporters, if you have any last-minute questions, you can either raise your hand or note that in the chat. Going once, going twice.
Excuse
Okay.
me.
Uh-huh.
This is
Sherwood?
Tom Sherwood. I'd like a question.
Tom.
I put it in the chat.
Okay, I'm sorry, it didn't come to me here. Maybe you DM to somebody else, but Tom Sherwood,
It's
NBC4
Alicia
Hurricane.
Jimenez. Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, and thank you, Council President, for taking questions. The council has a responsibility for the entire government of Montgomery County. Is there a way for the council to compel the board to release the Jackson-Lewis report, if only to a council committee?
Legally is no. We have called for it to be released in the unredacted complete report. We'll continue to call for that. We've had, there have been private, direct conversations. There have been public, and I have formally sent the letter as noted. The question is also whether or not the council wants, if we were to receive it, whether that would be confidential or not. My view is unless and until the public has the ability to see it, it's not adequate. It's not enough. So we don't have a legal mechanism to compel in the way that you have suggested to force or require. We have advocated very strongly for it. We'll continue to do that. I believe that if it is released prior to Thursday, it would allow for Thursday to be a much more productive conversation because we won't have to demand answers to what's redacted in that report. That will be out there for the public and for the council to understand. And then we can ask the questions of what have we learned? What has been done in response? And how do we move forward? And to me, that's what I would like to see, a substantive conversation of how we move forward with the school system. I think the best way to do that would be for a release of the unredacted complete Jackson-Lewis report.
Thank you very much. If I could do a quick follow-up. You have twice said that you believe that report contains the answers to many of the questions you want to ask. Have you seen a copy of the report yourself, even though you cannot comment on it?
No, I have not seen a copy of the unredacted complete report. I have only seen what the public has seen.
Thank you
And
very
I
much.
believe that's the case of all council members.
Thank you for answering my questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom Sherwood, WAMU. Kate Ryan, WTOP, I see you have a follow-up question.
I do. Last question. You have talked about the council has the unique fiduciary responsibility when it comes to the school board, budgetary, et cetera. Do we know how much Dr. McKnight's early departure is going to cost the county?
We don't. The council has not received that information.
Do you get that? Is that something that will come to you?
Generally, not necessarily. We wouldn't get that separately from the public. That the way in which our budget process works is that personnel is a very large, as you can understand, it's over 80% of the MCPS budget is personnel. That's the line item that comes before the council that we approve. But obviously these are unique circumstances, and that's a relevant question that many people in the public, I'm sure, will ask, and I would expect that eventually that will come to light.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Kate. I see no last-minute questions here in the chat or no hands raised. Going once, going twice, 3 times. Okay, back to you, Council President. Thank you.
Yeah, just thank you to everybody for joining us today. I appreciate your coverage. We need local coverage now more than ever. So, these are not easy questions to answer, and that's the point. And I just want to express my appreciation to each of you in local media for doing what you're doing as a public service. We all have our roles to play, and I very much respect and appreciate you playing yours and the professionalism with which you go about your work. So thank you. Have a good week and look forward to seeing you all soon.